I'm of the age that was just perfect for the Pokémon craze in the late 90s. And I was all in as a kid. I watched the TV show, I had some trading cards, but most importantly I had the original games on my Game Boy Color. That being said, I didn't keep up with the games beyond the first generation. And I'm not an overly sentimental guy, and I'm not huge on dwelling in nostalgia either. But Pokémon does have a special place in my heart, and I still play the old games from time to time. However, when I first heard they were making a live-action Pokémon movie, I went oof. Because historically there has not been one single great video game movie ever. And most of them have been genuinely bad. And then you have the live action aspect as well, which I was highly skeptical about, but were my worries warranted? Well, not really, because this is easily one of the better video game adaptations out there, which honestly isn't saying very much. But as far as pure enjoyment of the movie goes, it's up there with Angry Birds and Warcraft. Maybe even a slight notch above those, and this might actually be number one, making it my favorite video game adaptation of all time. And turns out that the live action aspect wasn't really an issue at all. I mean, the way they blend CGI with live action works really well for the most part. Now, there's always gonna be some spots where the execution isn't seamless, but I'd say those were exceptions and only popped up every once in a while. And as far as the art direction went, I think they found the perfect balance. Between not too realistic but not too cartoony either. Just the perfect middle ground. So I had no reason to be worried about that at all. But what about the story? Because let's be honest, that's where I'd say probably most video game adaptations really fail. Oh, and by the way, if you know nothing about Pokémon, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not gonna go into that here, but I will say there's a brief little sequence in the movie. A sort of short explanation for the uninitiated, so you could potentially go into this completely blind. And the world and how it all works should still make some amount of sense to you. Anyway, the story is about this kid in his early 20s who, through an interesting turn of events, ends up meeting this peculiar little Pikachu voiced by Ryan Reynolds. These two also team up with a girl who works for a local news outlet. And together they work as a team to solve a couple of mysteries. Mysteries that were basically kicked off in a little intro sequence in the beginning of the movie. Now I will say structurally the story worked, nothing wrong with it. And I will even go as far as to say that it threw some twists at me that I didn't see coming. In hindsight, I should have definitely seen them coming. They weren't that crazy. But I didn't, and they were good twists that made sense too. So story-wise, I thought this worked perfectly well. It wasn't amazing, but it worked. Oh, and I guess I should mention that I liked the humor in this too. I didn't find it that funny, but I thought it was consistently amusing, with a few funnier moments thrown in there every once in a while. So far I haven't really found a lot to complain about. And overall, I really didn't have any major issues with it either. That being said, I didn't really care that much about the characters. They were okay, far from the worst I've seen, but I could have cared a lot more too. And I guess that's the main reason I didn't enjoy this more, why I didn't love it. I had a hard time really getting invested, and as a result, this ended up being more or less just a mildly entertaining movie to me. But I will also admit that the very end was more or less perfectly executed. And even though I wasn't that invested, it still managed to hit the right emotional beats to get to me. It left me feeling good, and in general I just don't have that many bad things to say about it. It's a very decent movie that just sort of works and doesn't have any glaring big issues. Nothing really stood out to me at least as being a major flaw. So would I recommend it? If you're a fan of Pokémon, I'd say it's worth checking out. Or if you have kids, or you are yourself one, I think this is a decent kids movie too. But if you don't have any interest in Pokémon, you can probably skip it. Or don't, I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to get myself the complete Pokémon collection. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.